Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be ranking the series openers for every series of modern Doctor Who, 1 through 13. I won't be adding the 2009 specials, since those are specials and none of them is an opener to a series, so we're just going to be doing series 1 through series 13. And today I've got a little help from my assistant Peachon. Love my little Peachon stuffed animal. Interesting story, I bought Peachon at an anime convention where I was cosplaying as Ryoga, which of course is a character from Ranma 1/2 who turns into Peachon whenever he gets splashed with cold water. I loved cosplaying as Ryoga. I did it at a couple cons. It was one of my favorite cosplays. Everybody kept asking me if I was lost, since Ryoga's habitually lost. It took him 2 weeks to get to a fight in his backyard one time. So we got Peachon helping us, and we also got a couple of my lightsabers here with me, like my Ultra Saber's Prophecy. And, well, that's not setting down the way I wanted. I've also got my Crimson Reaper. Look at that etch work. Pretty cool, isn't it? Love my little saber collection. So, we're going to start at the bottom. And at the bottom is The Magician's Apprentice. This episode, now I'm going to be judging these, the series openers that are two-parters, I'm going to be judging them just by the first episode, the actual episode that opens the season. I'm not going to judge them by the whole story, which is in a lot of them's favor, because in modern Doctor Who, Part 2 usually doesn't live up to Part 1. That's not always the case, but more often than not, that's the case. I love the opening to this story before the credits with the reveal of who the child is. That is a phenomenal opening. I will give it that. It never quite lives up to it after that. The bit with Missy at the beginning and freezing the planes is lame and time consuming. I did love the "oh Missy, you're so fine" bit. That's funny. I like that. But everything else leading up to them finding the Doctor is just boring and a waste of time. The Doctor riding in on a tank, playing a guitar, just screams midlife crisis Doctor, and it doesn't work for me. It feels jumping the shark. It feels silly. It feels like something Classic Who would have never done. Like they're not taking the character seriously. They're not taking the character seriously there. I like the kind of snake guy, the guy who's all the snakes built up, the fact they're like a democracy or whatever. He's a cool character. I like him. I think he's executed well, and I like him in concept. So I will give the episode that. He is a cool character. And how he ties in even at the end of the story is pretty cool. I don't really care for the cliffhanger because I don't really think we get the Davros reveal until Part 2. Because I think the cliffhanger ends with them on Scar, which is a pretty good cliffhanger. But again, just episode 1 leaves me wanting. I have to try to remember where it cuts off, because I remember the Doctor riding around in Davros' chair. I think it's Part 2, which is also utterly stupid. This episode, the story, Parts 1 and Part 2 had good potential, but they were squandered because Moffat was being Moffat. But yeah, while episode 1 has a couple neat things about it, ultimately, I just find it eye-rolling and off-putting. Number 12. In 12th place is New Earth. Now, I rewatched New Earth recently as a patron review, actually, for the 5th Doctor, and I did enjoy the episode. It's still one of the weaker openings, but I hadn't watched it in so long. I did enjoy it. It's one of those you rewatch about every 7 or 8 years. It's still not great, but it has some interesting things in it. David Tennant is good in it. Has a lot of humor to it. I do like the humor to it. The climax of it's not interesting with his cure-all. Feels very Deus Machina. But the humor in it kind of helps tide me over. I love watching David Tennant and Billie Piper having to play Cassandra in it. That's really well done. Number 11 on the list is the Halloween Apocalypse. This episode isn't bad on its own, but it asks a lot of questions we don't get answers to. The Flux never lives up to what Halloween Apocalypse sets up, because it really sets up this dynamic between the main bad guy, Skeletor, and the Doctor. Like, they're destined to do this forever, like the Batman and the Joker relationship, like they're intertwined in the past somewhere, and it never delivers on that, and they never live up to what this episode sets them up to be. It does a good setup. I liked Halloween Apocalypse on first watch, and try as I might just to judge it by the episode, I can't, because it's much like how Force Awakens is retroactively not great to me because of Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker being terrible. Halloween Apocalypse retroactively isn't good to me just because Flux ended up being, at best, mediocre. Number 10 on the list, I believe we're at now. Is that right? 10? Let's see. 13, 12, 11, 10. Yeah, 10 is The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Part of this just boils down to the villain being uninteresting. Tim Shaw just isn't interesting. I mean, it's like they set him up to be the big bad of not only the season, but maybe the big bad of her era. A brand new villain. I'll give him props for trying to do a brand new villain and not just bringing a classic villain back. But he's terrible. Now, I like his outfit when he has the mask on, this kind of Predator look, like a more streamlined Predator that assassinates people. There's potential there, but it's not done well. The teeth thing, the acting. Whitaker is okay in this one. I like the fact her doctor is much more self-confident here than she would be later. She is very in control and confident, has a lot of self-confidence. She doesn't flinch in the face of danger. I like that. She actually has some good qualities in this episode. Whitaker is definitely still finding her place in the role, though. Some of her speeches at the end don't quite work for me. Leave this planet while you still have a choice. There are plenty of other actors who played the Doctor who could have delivered that way better. As in, probably any of them. But I don't quite buy her delivery of those lines. It's not the lines themselves. I don't think the writing of the lines is bad, but I don't buy it. Now, her speech about family at the end, which is very reminiscent of the second Doctor's speech about family from Tomb of the Cybermen, is really well done. I actually like that, and Whitaker does a good job there, talking about how, while they're gone from this world, they're never gone from me. I actually really love that speech and the way she delivers that. But a lot of her other dialogue in this one doesn't work for me. Although I do love watching her make her Sonic. That is a good part of the episode. Just that smile she gives the spoon and that surprise when the TARDIS sparks right after she makes it. That's really well done. I think the companions are good here. We get a little backstory for all of them. I even like Grace a lot in this episode. Grace, even though she's not in the show much, does have a very lasting impact. I think the actress playing Grace did a really good job with establishing her as an important character. Overall, I find the story good, but just easing into good. And of course, the Doctor sets up all the problems for the season finale because she doesn't just kill Tim Shaw outright. She unintentionally causes bigger problems. Moving up into 9th place is The Pilot. The Pilot is not a bad episode, but a lot of this is going off rewatchability. And I just never really had the urge to go back and rewatch The Pilot. I've only watched it a couple times. I don't find it interesting. I don't find Heather interesting. I like Bill. I like how they meet. I like how they're trying to get away from Heather. I don't find the premise about Heather interesting. I love when we see the little fan service of the Daleks fighting the Movellans. That's cool to show just kind of where that war was at. I enjoyed that scene. But just ultimately, I find The Pilot boring and uninteresting, so I never really go back to it. To be fair, it deserves a rewatch. I really should give it a rewatch. That was number 9, actually, I believe. Number 8 is The Impossible Astronaut. I like both parts of this two-parter. I think the silents are a fascinating concept. I don't think they got used to their full potential, but I really like them in this two-parter. especially in episode 1. It's a fascinating concept. Moffat is very good at coming up with fascinating villains. I will give him that. And the idea of something that you forget it as soon as you aren't looking at it, you forget you ever saw it, it just erases itself from your memory, that's fascinating. And the fact it even does it to the Doctor is fascinating. I don't like the fact it sets up these things are running around all the time, so if the Doctor's ever running around the 60s, 70s, and 80s, he could be running into these things all the time, and we don't know it. That's kind of weird, but it's a fascinating concept. How it sets up the Doctor dying and the mystery it sets up of the season is set up well. It's not concluded well at the end of the series, but it's set up well here. And the mystery of who the little girl is, do the Doctor and Amy have a child? What's up here? It set up a lot of interesting things, especially for the time. Watching the Doctor get killed and then meeting the younger version of him, wondering how that's going to all resolve. It's pretty cool. Plus, I love the guy who played, Canton Edward Delaware, or whatever his name is, the third. The guy who played the younger version of him. I like him as an actor. I remember he was in Battlestar Galactica. I really like him as an actor. And he's phenomenal in this episode. 5 minutes? Just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes? And I like when he just tells the Doctor, like your wheels. I just like him a lot. He really carries this story for me. River's still fine in this one. River doesn't irk me as much as she does some people. She's fine in this one. I like this one. Episode 1 and 2, I like. Number 7 is Asylum of the Daleks. Now, Asylum of the Daleks is very flawed. It has a lot of problems. It does a lot of things that don't make sense, and it does a lot of things for plot convenience. The Daleks even having an asylum doesn't really make sense. Why would they keep faulty Daleks? Daleks kill other Daleks for little things all the time. Why would they have a place for insane Daleks? Especially a place they can't even really get down to now. And then the whole Rory and Amy divorcing thing feels contrived just to have a reason for them to get back together at the end. It doesn't really work. I do like Matt Smith in this one. This one has some interesting humor in it. That's your plan. You're going to fire me at a planet. And then Roy says whatever he says, and he's like, don't compliment the Daleks when they're firing me at a planet. I like little stuff like that. It has some other humorous moments in it. I like the fact Amy can read him well, and Rory and Amy aren't standing too close together. What's up with that? As he straightens his bow tie. I like the fact Amy can read him well enough to see that. And the fact he does fix it, because he doesn't need the bracelet. How it brings in Clara, or that version of Clara, is really clever, because we didn't know she was coming in yet. That was a nice surprise they managed to keep secret. And I'm always going to give it props for that, because we knew she'd be in the Christmas special, but we didn't know she was going to be in this episode. And then having the revelation of her being the Dalek was clever, because I didn't see that coming. And the souffle bit makes sense, because it mentions that early on. Where do you get the milk? I like that. And I really like Jenna Coleman here. I like this version of Clara. I actually like this version of Clara, and I like the Victorian version of Clara better than the actual Clara we got. I like how snarky she is, and this kind of tit-for-tat repertoire she has with Matt and Rory. The chin and the nose, the chin, whatever she calls them. I like the nickname she has for him, and I like, again, just how sassy she is. I like this version of her a lot, and it's a shame we lost her. I don't like the memory loss thing where the Daleks don't remember him. I'm glad they abandoned that, because that's kind of dumb. And them calling him the Predator, I don't know, I like the Oncoming Storm better. So, flawed but fun is how I call this one. Number 6 is Smith and Jones. I'm surprised this one's not higher, and it probably would have, but I've watched it many times. It's a good episode. I just happen to like the other ones more. I love Series 3. It's my favorite series of Modern Who. This is a great introduction for Martha, and I love how courageous she is here and how well she handles herself. And I love the interactions between Martha and the 10th Doctor here. They're serious at times and playful at times, and I really enjoy it. It's shot well. It's written well. I love the Jadoon. I tend not to like when they constantly make aliens just Earth creatures that are more humanoid or bigger. But I love the Jadoon, I just do. A platoon of Jadoon on the moon. I love the fact they wrote that just to make Tennant have to say that because he had trouble saying that oon sound with his English accent, so they wrote that just to match with. I love that. It's a fun episode. I just happen to like the others more. Number 5 on the list is Spyfall Part 1. I actually really like Spyfall. It's fun. There's a lot going on. It's very actiony. It has this very James Bond feel to it. You know? The third Doctor would approve. The name's Doctor. The Doctor. I mean, the episode realizes that. It doesn't try to run from it. You have Stephen Fry in the episode. That's cool. I hate that they kill him off so soon. But I love that he's there. I love the character of O and how it established. It does a decent job of establishing the fact O and the Doctor have met before. I think Sacha Dhawan plays O well, which really makes that twist ending pay off. And I like that twist ending. I think it's personally done better in Utopia because Derek Jacobi is just amazing. But it's still done well here to where it doesn't feel like a retread to me. I like it. I connected enough with O to where I was still shocked by it. And just that shot well. Whitaker acts that scene well. Sacha Dhawan acts that scene well. The music playing right there is fun. I really enjoy that. And watching how Sacha can switch from being this character to acting like this character is just great acting. I like a lot of this episode. Seeing everyone get rounded up by Stephen Fry's people. Seeing the Doctor almost killed in the car crash. To be fair, the glowing people don't really pan out like you thought they would. And the kind of Steve Jobs-like guy doesn't quite pan out like you thought it would. Part 2 is weaker than Part 1. Part 2 is still good, but not as good as Part 1. But what Part 1 sets up was really impressive. And again, this is an episode that I just find a lot of fun to watch. A lot of fun to watch. Alright, we're going to do number 4. Turns out when I was shooting the original video, somehow I missed number 4. It's because as I was writing the list was changing, and I literally had the original number 4 scratched through, so I just kind of skipped over it, even though I had the actual one I'm supposed to be talking about there beside where I'd scratched through. Somehow I just missed it. Luckily, I had intended from the beginning for this to be a video that was far more edited than most of mine, where it was actually counting down like a list. So that actually works out well here. Yeah, I decided, I love shooting at different places in the apartment sometimes. I've got my Castle Grayskull behind me, which is only there to keep my head from hitting on the lights. You can't see this. I'm 5'5", and I still bang my head on the little chandelier fixture here, which tells you it's hanging too low. So I set the castle there to keep me from banging my head on it anymore. But number 4 on the list is Deep Breath. I like Deep Breath. It has grown on me. I originally saw it in theater, basically on a first date with a girl I ended up dating over a year. I've talked about that before. So it's always going to have a special place for me. But just watching it the first time, I thought it was good, but not great. It was okay. It was easing into good territory. But on rewatches, it's really grown on me. It's one that's really grown on with me. Excuse me. Like a few of Capaldi's stories. I'm like that with Robots of Sherwood as well. I love the cameo from Matt at the end. It's wonderful, and it's one of those things you're kind of surprised I never thought of that before. It's done really well. I like Capaldi in this one, because even though he's, Series 8 is very much his grumpy, not people doctor, he's still pretty hilarious in the story. Like when he goes to go out the door, not me. Then he looks out the window, me. And when he's talking to the dinosaur, oh, that's all right, that's how I usually meet women. I will keep you safe. It has a lot of Capaldi having these very humorous moments, which I enjoy. It's nice to see the Ponstenatter gang, or whatever they're called again, with Madame Vastra and her crew. It's nice to see them one last time. This is the last time we saw them, I think. It's nice to see them back, see them interact with another doctor. Clara in this one doesn't quite work for me because she's having trouble accepting Capaldi as the doctor, whereas Clara has interacted with all of the previous Doctors, and especially after the events of Day of the Doctor, this should be a companion more willing to accept a new Doctor than anyone, because she knows about regeneration. She's literally met every Doctor. So she knows them, she sees them, she knows he can change. This shouldn't be as big a deal for her. Now I know some people will argue, yes, but those aren't her Doctor. And she's upset that she's lost her Doctor. And I get that, imagine you wake up one morning and your significant other has suddenly changed bodies into someone that looks 40 years older and has a different personality, the day before your wedding. You'd be a little unhappy. I get that because it's obvious she had a thing for the Doctor, for the 11th Doctor, and then to see him turn into this, I can see where that would be off-putting and frustrating. But I feel like she should be more accepting of that, simply because more than any other companion, she understands regeneration and how he changes, and she's seen all of his different incarnations and the fact they're not all the same. I feel like the whole thing with her story arc in this is done just so they can have the Matt Smith cameo, which I love, but it feels like the whole thing of her having trouble accepting Capaldi is just there to serve the plot. The story I like how it ties in with the Madame de Pompadour episode, The Girl in the Fireplace, how it ties into that, but it does it in a totally different way, with how they've been cannibalizing humans in a totally different way than they were in The Girl in the Fireplace. That's done really, really well here, and the Doctor's analogy about, is it still the same broom? I enjoy that. And of course the introduction of Missy is great. So yeah, this one's really grown on me. I really like it a lot. And again, Capaldi has some pretty funny moments that I really like. Number 3 is Partners in Crime. Series 4 opener. I love the 10th Doctor and Donna together. I do. I find the episode silly. The fat just walks away with the little fat things, but it's silly in a very classic Who way. You could have seen classic Who at times doing something like this. So it's that kind of silly fun that I can understand and accept. And I love how the Doctor and Donna keep missing each other. This has a lot of humor into it, which I like, while still having good stakes. When they're missing each other, popping their heads up in the cubicles, that's funny. When the one woman's trying to flirt with 10, he doesn't quite get it. Here's my number. Why? You be health, I'll be safety. I like that. That's humorous. And one of the funniest moments in Doctor Who is when the Doctor and Donna spot each other. When he's at the window and she's at the door, and that little bit when they're messaging to each other, it's me. And he's like, I can see that. And then she starts going into her, and he's just like, That is hilarious. I love that scene. That's one of my favorite Doctor Who scenes. It's just hilarious every time I watch it. I love 10 and Donna together. Donna is my favorite modern companion. I love the bit when he takes the sonic pin and the sonic screwdriver. What happens when you put them together? I don't know. Nor do I. That's pretty cool. And I like what led up to that. Well, she won't be able to do anything unless she has a sonic device too, and it cuts to her using the sonic device. Nice to see she's a lefty. It does have humorous moments in it. And of course the reveal of Rose at the end sets up a great seasonal arc, wondering how she's back. It's just a lot of fun. A lot of silly fun. I like it. Number 2 on the list is Rose. I love Rose. Rose had such a hard job because the modern show was really probably going to live or die on how good Rose was. Rose, much like Spearhead from Space, does a good job of introducing people to a brand new era of Doctor Who, especially for Rose, because it has to introduce a whole new generation to it. And it has to try to succeed where the TV movie failed, and it succeeds brilliantly. It introduces a classic Doctor Who villain, but not one that was overused, and not one people would be as familiar with the Autons, and it's a great take on the Autons. It introduces Eccleston without giving us a big expo dump on his backstory. We don't just get everything about the Time War in the first 10 minutes, or even in the first episode. It doesn't even really bring up the whole Gallifrey Gone thing until the second episode. It gives us this in bits over the course of the season and the show, really. It doesn't just dump all of that on us. And I like that. Eccleston is so good in this role to show us this edgier, kind of darker Doctor that we don't know why he's that way, but he is very much an edgier darker Doctor. But he still has his humorous bits. Eccleston is really good at switching between very serious, threateningly serious, to very comical with that huge grin of his, that huge Tom Baker grin he has, very quickly. And he does both of these really well. Like, I love when he's getting choked by the hand. That look on his face, it's comical, it's funny. He exaggerates it a little bit, but not enough to where it feels like a caricature. And I love that bit about, how come you sound like you're from the north? Lots of planets have a north. And the bit when he's trying to find the big round ring, big round, right in the middle of the city, must be cloaked or something. And she's just like, and he's like, what? 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 Oh, I love that. So it does a good job of being serious and delivering a great story, really getting the mystery of the character. It does a good job of introducing Rose and Jackie and Mickey. And it gives you, you know, where she meets the guy who runs the website, to give you the fact that the Doctor is this kind of mysterious character and give you a little bit of his backstory from that. It does a good job of introducing you to the TARDIS for the first time. Watching Rose's reaction to it is probably the same reaction a lot of new fans who started with this era of the show, or the modern show, they probably had the same, whoa. Because there's a lot of people, the first time they ever watched Doctor Who was this episode. And it does everything it needs to do really well, and that's the reason why the show is still running to this day. And the number one on my list is the 11th Hour. I love the 11th Hour. It's just phenomenal. It's my favorite Matt Smith episode. It's my favorite post-regeneration episode. This is an episode that just takes off pretty much out of the gate, and it never slows down. It's just one big, well, I don't even know if I want to say sprint. It's just one big marathon all the way through. It just never loses pace. Maybe it is more like a sprint thing, because it feels like it's going full speed almost the whole time. It's got really great incidental music. I love Murray Gold's 11th Doctor theme, and it's never used better than it is here, I think. There's only a couple other times it might rival it. Patient Zero's design isn't really impressive, but Patient Zero as a idea, as a concept, is really good and executed well. I love how the story establishes this bond with Amy by him meeting her when she was a child and leaving that kind of impression on her, to where when he runs into her again as an adult, there's already a bit of a bond formed. I like that. I'm surprised it's never been done before. It's really clever. Matt Smith is the best he ever is in the role, and that's not to say he's ever bad in the role. I like Matt Smith. I just prefer the more Series 5 version of him than I do Series 6 and 7, where he feels almost like a caricature of himself at times. They go a little too far into the silly aspect, whereas I find Series 5 is a much better balance of his characters, and he's really good in this one. Again, he's very actiony, very energetic, all over the place. He's got his funny moments, but he's got his very serious moments where you realize this is not an incarnation of the Doctor you want to screw with. Not that any of them are, but especially this one. And I love that ending, you know, when it's showing the holographic images, and you see all the past Doctors, and he steps through and says his line, says who he is, tells them to run, and it just has that wonderful music playing in the background. It's one of my favorite moments of the modern show. It just hits every time I see it. Really, really well. I love his speech of, I can do it! 20 minutes, I can do it. I love that confidence. That's the confidence the Doctor is supposed to have. I can do it. I just need you to believe for 20 minutes. I love that. It does a really, really good job at establishing the characters of this era of Doctor Who, even Rory. So I really just love the 11th Hour. What a way to start a series. So I'd like to know how you would rank these and what you think of my list. So comment down below and let me know. Other things to do, click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications, so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon if you like what I do and would like to subscribe to what I do and help me out. I certainly appreciate that. There's a link to that down in the description below. Anyone who joins at any tier level gets a free video request. I want to give a shout out to one of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane. I appreciate his continued support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at or review, or that you think I might like, as well as a link to my Amazon wish list with some excellent things on that I would love to get my hands on. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.